Look at this map I found.
Now, we've all heard of the legend of Atlantis.
It is a map that shows the mythical land of Atlantis.
Whether Atlanteans or giants.
And it matches all the characteristics of Atlantis.
Atlantis is waiting.
I can't believe it.
And this map asserts that it's maybe not so mythical. It shows exactly where it is.
For over 2,000 years. The legend of Atlantis has haunted human history, a tale of an advanced civilization that vanished beneath the sea. But now, new discoveries off the coast of North Africa are challenging everything we thought we knew, using sonar mapping, satellite imaging, and deep-sea scans. Researchers have uncovered evidence of massive circular structures buried beneath the Atlantic seabed formations that perfectly match Plato's description of Atlantis. Could this be proof that Atlantis was real and that its people were not entirely human? This investigative documentary explores the shocking new data linking ancient civilizations, alien origins, and forgotten technology from a world that may have once bridged Earth and the stars. Dive into the evidence, follow the myths, and decide for yourself. Was Atlantis truly the lost cradle of an alien civilization on Earth? In 2024, a research vessel scanning the seabed off the coast of Morocco detected something no one expected: a vast, circular formation buried beneath the silt, matching dimensions described by Plato more than 2,000 years ago. To some, it was a coincidence. To others, it was the first real clue. For thousands of years, the name Atlantis has captivated the human imagination, not just as an ancient legend, but as something that feels strangely familiar. It's less like hearing a myth, and more like remembering a story we somehow already knew, a story of brilliance, loss, and a warning that time refused to erase. Over 2 millennia ago, the Greek philosopher Plato became the first to write that story down. He said it came from Solon, a respected Athenian statesman who, during his travels in Egypt, heard temple priests speak of a mighty empire that had ruled the world 9,000 years earlier, a civilization that vanished overnight. Plato called it Atlantis, a massive island beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, standing in the heart of the Atlantic Ocean. He described a world unlike anything known to his time cities, built in perfect rings of land and water, temples plated with precious metals, and a people said to descend from the sea, god Poseidon himself. At the center of their capital rose a vast temple of gold and silver, surrounded by canals and gardens designed with mathematical precision. To Plato, Atlantis wasn't fantasy. It was a model of harmony between man, nature, and the divine. But harmony never lasts forever. As the centuries passed, the Atlanteans grew powerful, their mastery of the natural world unmatched by any civilization that followed. They learned to harness the Earth's energy, to navigate oceans, and to map the stars with impossible accuracy. But with power came arrogance. Curiosity turned to conquest. Wisdom gave way to pride. According to Plato, the gods watched as this corruption deepened until balance could no longer hold. In a single night, the earth trembled, the seas rose, and the great island of Atlantis disappeared beneath the waves. For centuries afterward, sailors claimed the waters where it once stood were impossible to cross shallow, muddy, and eerily still, as if the ocean itself was guarding a secret. And now, with new scans hinting that something vast may still lie hidden below those same waters, one question returns. Was Plato recording a moral allegory or preserving the memory of a real, global disaster that erased an advanced civilization from history? Because in the end, the legend of Atlantis isn't just about a city lost to the sea. It's about us, the rise and fall of human ambition, the tension between knowledge and wisdom, and the timeless reminder that no civilization, no matter how brilliant, survives once it forgets its soul. As scientists analyzed the sonar readings from the Atlantic shelf, something unexpected began to emerge, not just patterns in the seabed, but patterns in time itself, across myths and continents, from the temples of Egypt to the jungles of Mesoamerica. Ancient voices seem to describe the same story told in different tongues: that history is not a line, but a circle. Since the dawn of time, cultures have whispered of this rhythm: creation and collapse, light and shadow, remembering and forgetting. To them, Atlantis was never a singular tragedy. It was a signal, the echo of a law that governs all worlds when balance is lost. The cycle resets, The Maya spoke of the suns of the world, great ages of earth that rose and fell through floods, fire, and renewal. The Hindus described the yugas, 4 cosmic eras marking the soul's journey from truth to ignorance. And in Sumer, the earliest known civilization, ancient tablets told how the gods once walked beside humankind until they withdrew, leaving mortals to wrestle with power and pride alone. Mystics and philosophers alike see Atlantis as the summit of one of those cycles and age when humanity reached extraordinary heights, mastering both the material and the spiritual. They were said to command the forces of nature, to read the stars as easily as scripture, to shape matter through sound and light. But when mastery turned to entitlement, that higher connection, what they called the source, began to fade. What came next was not wrath from above, but balance restored. In the cosmic order, every excess finds its counterweight. And now, some believe. We stand at the same turning point. Our machines reach the stars, but our minds remain divided. We can create intelligence, yet not wisdom. We have conquered distance, yet forgotten stillness. The same imbalance that once consumed Atlantis is quietly reappearing knowledge advancing faster than consciousness. Mystics call this moment the time of choice. It is the breath between cycles, the fragile pause where a species decides what it will become. If we continue to chase progress without compassion, the pattern will close as it always has through destruction. But if we awaken, if we learn to merge reason with empathy, science with spirit, then for the first time in recorded memory, the wheel may not need to fall again. Even winter, with all its darkness and silence, exists only to prepare the way for spring. Perhaps Atlantis was not an ending, but a seed planted deep in the memory of humankind, waiting for the next civilization wise enough to let it bloom. If Atlantis truly existed, then somewhere in stone, in story, or in memory it must have left a trace, and across the ancient world. Those traces seem to whisper the same refrain, from Egypt to Sumer, from the Andes to the Pacific. Civilizations separated by oceans told eerily similar tales, stories of luminous beings who arrived from the sea after a great flood, carrying knowledge that would restart the world. In Egypt, the priests of Sais told Solon about just such people survivors who crossed the Western Sea after their homeland was destroyed. They spoke of men of immense wisdom who taught the early Egyptians astronomy, medicine, and the sacred art of construction. These strangers, they said, helped raise the first dynasties along the Nile and aligned their monuments with the stars. Even today, the pyramids of Giza mirror the belt of Orion, with near-perfect precision, a harmony of earth and sky that still defies simple explanation. Some scholars see in the god Thoth, the divine scribe of knowledge, a symbolic echo of one of those forgotten teachers, perhaps a sage from that vanished age. In Sumer, the cradle of recorded history, clay tablets tell of the Anunnaki beings who descended from the heavens to guide humankind after chaos. They brought law, agriculture, astronomy, the blueprints of civilization. They were not gods in the divine sense, but custodians of memory, restoring order to a shattered world. Across the ocean, echoes of the same pattern appear. In Mesoamerica, the Maya and Aztecs worshipped Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god who came from across the eastern sea, bringing knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and architecture. In the Andes, the Inca spoke of Viracocha, a tall, bearded teacher who rose from the waters to teach art and agriculture, then disappeared beyond the horizon. Different continents, different languages, yet always the same image teachers from the sea, bearers of wisdom after the flood. To archaeologists and mystics alike, these parallels are more than coincidence. They suggest a migration, the dispersal of survivors from a forgotten world. If Atlantis fell, perhaps some of its people escaped, carrying fragments of their science and philosophy to distant lands. They would have been the seed-bearers of our modern world, the bridge between one age of light and the next. The physical proof remains elusive, but the patterns endure. Pyramids and temples across continents point to the same constellations. Myths from every culture speak of floods, rebirth, and teachers who came from beyond. It's as if each civilization preserved a single chapter of the same global memory, a memory of a world that fell, and of the few who kept its flame alive. Maybe we've been searching for Atlantis in the wrong place. Its ruins may not lie beneath the sea, but within us, encoded in the symbols we still use, the myths we still tell, and the knowledge that keeps reappearing throughout history. If that's true, then perhaps the people of Atlantis never truly vanished. Perhaps they became us, their legacy, woven into human consciousness, waiting for the moment when we remember where it all began. What keeps Atlantis alive in the human imagination isn't just its disappearance, it's the possibility that it once achieved something we still haven't rediscovered. A civilization so advanced it feels less like the past, and more like a glimpse of our own distant future. When Plato wrote of Atlantis, he hinted that its greatness came not from wealth or war, but from knowledge and understanding of natural forces so deep that the line between science and magic vanished. Later traditions claimed the Atlanteans had learned to draw energy directly from the planet itself, from sound, vibration, even the resonance of the stars. Among the most persistent ideas is that of crystal technology. Myths speak of enormous crystalline towers capable of absorbing and amplifying cosmic energy clean, endless power that needed no fuel. These crystals, legend says, sustained entire cities, healed the body, and maintained harmony between human consciousness and the Earth's electromagnetic field. Fantastic as it sounds, nearly every ancient culture from Tibet to Egypt revered crystals as conduits of energy and light. Perhaps those stories are fractured memories of a science long forgotten. Some researchers have wondered whether traces of that technology linger in the world's oldest monuments. The precision of the Great Pyramid, its alignment with magnetic north, the acoustic properties of its inner chambers all seem to hint at a purpose beyond mere tomb or temple. Maybe it once functioned as an enormous harmonic resonator, a kind of planetary tuning fork, echoing knowledge that originated in a civilization far older than Egypt itself. But as with all mastery, the danger came when curiosity turned into control. If the Atlanteans truly learned to channel such immense energy, even a small misuse could have triggered devastation on a planetary scale. The same power that sustained their cities may have torn them apart. In that light, Atlantis' fall begins to sound less like myth and more like physics. The universe rebalancing what had gone too far. To mystics, Atlantis was never only a place. It was a state of consciousness, a level of awareness humanity once reached and lost. They say that people who feel a strange familiarity with the legend, who dream of shining cities of light or feel drawn to energy healing, may carry remnants of that old knowledge within them, not memories of buildings or machines, but of understanding the sense that technology and spirit were once one and the same. And maybe that is the real legacy of Atlantis. Its lesson isn't about machines that vanished beneath the waves, but about balance. Progress must serve consciousness, not eclipse it. Knowledge without compassion always destroys itself. If Atlantis truly existed, its power was never just technological, it was moral. And its warning still stands: the future will belong not to those who master energy, but to those who master themselves. What makes the story of Atlantis endure isn't just the mystery of how it ended, it's what it reveals about where we are now. Because in so many ways, we've become what the Atlanteans once were, a civilization that can shape the world, but risks forgetting why. We've split the atom, decoded the genome, reached for the stars. We've filled the planet with signals, satellites, and light, yet somewhere in all that brilliance, the quiet pulse of balance has dimmed. We're more connected than ever, but rarely in harmony. We can command nature, but we've forgotten how to listen to it. According to legend, Atlantis didn't fall because it lacked intelligence. It fell because it lost awareness. Its people mastered the forces of creation, but not the discipline of conscience. They could move mountains, but not their own pride. And when their ambition grew louder than their wisdom, the earth itself became their mirror. Today, we stand on the same threshold surrounded by miracles of our own making: artificial intelligence, genetic design, quantum computing tools that can heal the planet or undo it. The question isn't whether we're capable, it's whether we're conscious, whether we can evolve faster in spirit than we can in science. To some, Atlantis is a warning. To others, it's a promise proof that human potential is far greater than we believe, if only we can wield it wisely. Perhaps both are true. Its fall reminds us what happens when power outgrows purpose, and its legend reminds us that the cycle can be broken. Because the real legacy of Atlantis isn't tragedy, it's memory. A mirror held to every generation, asking the same eternal question: will we remember what we are before we forget who we were? If we can restore that balance, if we can let compassion guide invention, and wisdom shape discovery, then Atlantis will not remain a warning from the past, but a prophecy fulfilled. Not a world lost beneath the sea, but a state of consciousness rising again. Maybe that's why its name refuses to fade, because the story of Atlantis has never been about a sunken city. It's about us, about the light we keep losing, and the one we still have time to find. Maybe Atlantis never truly disappeared. The temples, the towers, the luminous engines of its age may have sunk beneath the waves, but its essence, the pulse of that consciousness, still moves through us. What drowned was the form. What survived was the frequency. And that frequency has begun to rise again. Every time we seek meaning beyond success. Every time compassion outweighs ambition. Every time we pause long enough to feel connected to something greater that is Atlantis remembering itself through us. The lost city doesn't need to surface from the sea. It awakens through the soul. Many ancient traditions have spoken of souls who return through the ages, bearers of light, who come not to rule, but to remind. You see them everywhere, the physicist exploring the link between energy and thought, the artist translating visions they can't explain, the healer restoring harmony where medicine ends, the teacher who reaches hearts instead of headlines. They are not rebuilding the architecture of Atlantis, they are rebuilding its awareness. And perhaps that is why our era feels so paradoxical, flooded with information, yet hungry for wisdom. Science now peers into realms once called mystical. Quantum physics tells us that observation shapes reality, that everything vibrates in patterns of energy truths that echo what ancient initiates once whispered in marble halls, what the modern mind calls discovery. The awakened spirit calls remembrance. This, then, is the real return of Atlantis, not a continent emerging from the ocean, but a consciousness surfacing within humanity. Each generation brings it closer. Each act of empathy amplifies it. The Atlantean ideal was never about perfection, but about harmony, a world where intellect served the soul, and creation was guided by love rather than fear. We stand again at that threshold, not of technology or territory, but of awareness. The same knowledge that once shattered a world now waits to heal one. When we finally unite our science with our spirit. When we build not to dominate, but to connect. Atlantis will no longer be a myth of the past, it will be a state of being. Because Atlantis was never just a place. It was, and is, a frequency, a golden resonance of unity, still humming beneath the noise of modern life, waiting for us to remember the sound,